far we can go. I just expressed Azerbaijan's position, how far we can go, and I think that this position is based not only on our experience in the recent years, but also on the unpredictable situation in the region and in the world in general. Thank you.
Dennis Samut, please, Dennis, introduce your institution as a country that you represent.
Dennis Samut, Director of Links Europe, a European foundation based in the Netherlands. Mr. President, history will remember you as the leader who won the 2020 Karabakh War. In many ways, that victory has defined your presidency. However, I wonder, do you also want to be remembered as the leader who brought peace to your country and to the South Caucasus region? And what steps are you taking in this direction? I read your speeches very carefully, and on many occasions you have spoken about the need for a peace agreement with Armenia. But for a number of years now, this objective seems to have been elusive. Do you consider that there are risks in the delay in signing this peace agreement? Will spoilers try to use the opportunity to stop Armenia and Azerbaijan from actually coming to an agreement? And do you think that a sense of urgency should be introduced into the process of finalizing this process?
In one of the interviews, I said that liberation of territories was the main goal of my political life, and I am proud that this goal has been achieved. How I will be remembered will depend on many factors. I, frankly speaking, don't even have time to think about it, and even if I think about that, it is beyond my capability to influence that. With respect to peace, I think we brought peace. We brought peace by war. And I think this is something which also should be evaluated broader than just a local situation in the Caucasus. How to achieve peace by military means. For many years, during the times of negotiations, times of occupation, I heard from Minsk Group co-chairs, 3 of them, in one voice, saying that there is no military solution to the conflict. And it happened that they were wrong, all the 3. Despite history of statehood, despite great international experience, despite being permanent members of UN Security Council, they were wrong. So I think that either they just were wrong because of wrong assessment, or it was a kind of a message to Azerbaijan that you will not succeed if you reside to a non-peaceful scenario. But we proved that there is a military solution to the conflict, so conflict is resolved. Actually, conflict was resolved 3 years ago when we liberated a big part of the occupied territories, and restoration of our sovereignty was just a matter of time. And it was clear that in the current, at that time, geographical situation, so-called Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, which has not been recognized even by Armenia, has no chance to survive as so-called independent quasi-state. They had 2 chances, either to integrate with the rest of Azerbaijan or to go to history. So I clearly realized that at that time. And one of the reasons why we were not in a hurry was that I clearly realized that, okay, 5 years' time, and we will achieve what we want. So anti-terror operation was not planned by us in November 2020. That's what I can say, very openly. So, war as a facilitator to peace, I think, is a clear evidence that it is possible. Another thing is with respect to the formal peace, and I think that you mentioned particularly that, peace agreement. And I would say that it's also, I think, must be analyzed by international experts also, that a country which suffered the 30 years of occupation, devastation, total destruction of its territory, ethnic cleansing and genocide, right after the liberation by itself, not by international mediators, offered peace. So it was us who offered peace to Armenia. And I remember after the war, when at that time still this former Minsk group was coming and going, I felt that they themselves do not know what to do, because their job now is not needed any longer. Azerbaijan implemented most of the provisions of so-called Madrid principles, which were considered as a basis for settlement, and they just didn't know what to do. It was again Azerbaijan. We said, we need to have peace agreement. We said, we need to have commissions on delimitation. It was not Armenia, it was not Brussels, it was not Washington, Paris, or Moscow. It was us. And that's how the process started. Then we've seen that nothing happens, so we decided to elaborate the principles for peace agreement. And we elaborated them and sent them to Armenia. And then again it was silence. And then we made it public. So we made public those famous 5 principles, which Armenia seems now more ready to accept. If they accepted them, or basically accepted them 3 years ago, there'll be no need for anti-terror operation. So this is, again, the history, but we must know. So it demonstrates that Azerbaijan was the advocate for peace, not Armenia. Another example of just recent months, there have been 5 or 6 exchanges of comments to the original Azerbaijani draft. Armenian comments, Azerbaijani comments, pieces of disagreement, agreement. Several times foreign ministers met in different places. And the last comment we sent was 11 September. So just for more, how to say, detailed information about what this peace agreement is, it's a document of maybe 6-7 pages maximum, with less than 20 articles. So for such a small document, Armenia needed 70 days, 70, to respond to us. And they responded only after Azerbaijani foreign minister publicly disclosed that, look, we are waiting for 2 months, why don't you respond? So this shows that the side which delayed the process is not Azerbaijan, it is Armenia. Why they delayed, I don't know. Whether it was their own decision or they were advised, but their new friends in some European capitals, I don't know, I can only suspect. But the fact is that the comments which we sent on 11 September, we received on 21st November. So now our foreign ministry is evaluating those comments and will send back. And I think after that, the meeting of foreign ministers will be appropriate, because now we see that still we are not close to the consensus, but many important issues which Armenia insisted on in the beginning now do not exist any longer. They do not exist on the ground, and they do not exist in their comments. I don't want to go much into the details because you understand it's confidential document, but I think now we are making one more step. But again, Azerbaijan was initiator. Azerbaijan was a country which actually demonstrated its will, and I hope that it will not take much time to come to an agreement. But one just observation. Peace agreement does not actually totally reflect peace. Peace agreements between many countries which violated that peace. Or there is no peace agreement between Soviet Union then and Russia now and Japan, but at the same time these countries before Russian-Ukrainian war were very close partners and friends. A lot of businesses, a lot of investments, a lot of mutual contacts. So for these countries, whether it was Soviet Union or Russia and Japan, the formal peace agreement was not an obstacle for normal interaction. I don't want to seem like I am following the same, how to say, historical pattern, but this is also one of the options. So I think when we talk about peace agreement, we should not be preoccupied with the formal side of that. What we need actually now, I mean Azerbaijan, we need a firm, verified guarantees that there will be no attempt of revanchism in Armenia. Why we need it? Because we know what is happening in Armenia, and also we know that Armenia have very bad advisors in some European capitals. Even without mentioning that capital, I think everybody understands whom I mean. So this could be a trigger. So far, it is provocative advices, but we do not exclude that they'll turn into destructive advices. So we must have a guarantee that there'll be no more war between two countries, that Armenia totally agrees with the situation, and what they say about territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, they really mean. They should forget about former Nagorno-Karabakh Republic and be constructive on the limitation of border. So that is actually peace. The paper which will be signed, of course, has importance, but I think important for us, especially after 30 years of Armenian unwillingness to liberate even 1 centimeter of our land. And not only previous Karabakh clan leaders who became president, but Pashinyan himself, when he said Karabakh is Armenia, and that's it, in Khankendi in 2019. What did he mean? And nobody asks him this question. And when his defense minister said that there will be new war for new territories, threatening Azerbaijan with occupation, also in 2019, it was not Kacherian, Sarkisian gang. It was Pashinyan. It was him. Now he tells Karabakh is Azerbaijan just because we won the war, not because he transformed his ideology. Ideology is the same. They still live with this ideology. The difference between Armenian government and opposition only is that Armenian government clearly understands that if they continue to contest our territorial integrity, we will crush them again. No matter who stands behind them, no matter who tells them what in that famous, beautiful European capital. Opposition, because they want to overthrow Pashinyan, they want this to happen. You know, they want him to make this mistake and then to come to power. So we need guarantees, and the guarantees which we can see with our eyes. So that will be the best, how to say, factor for peace in Caucasus. Thank you.
Ekaterina Mitravelli.
Thank you, Mr. President, for sharing with us your insights. And I also want to join my predecessors in appreciating yesterday's visit. You know, to say very shortly, it was impressive. And I wish you personally and Azerbaijan success on the future development of the region. And repatriation of the IDPs, which we all understand is not the easy process. Now about my question, it is kind of diverting from what we have been discussing, more in a different direction. Azerbaijan has been becoming important geopolitically, geoeconomically to EU, and EU is Azerbaijan's foremost trading partner. Also, Azerbaijan is an important supplier, energy supplier to the EU, and there are plans to advance on this direction. And in this context, Georgia also plays an important role as a partner and friend, as a transit country. Of course, our friendship is not based on the transit only, there are different dimensions, but in this context. And we aspire to become the part of the EU, as you know, and hope to get the positive answer in December, and then there hopefully will be future steps. Azerbaijan remains just a partner for the EU. And what do you think of the Georgia's drifting towards the EU, closer approximation? How will that affect Azerbaijan-Georgia relations? And how would you evaluate in general the increased EU role in the South Caucasus? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments about what we are doing in Karabakh. Thank you for being with us. You're absolutely right. Georgia and Azerbaijan are close partners. And of course, our partnership is much broader than energy cooperation, though this cooperation allowed us to present ourselves in Europe as a consolidated team of strategic importance. And my regular visits to Georgia and Georgian Prime Minister's regular visits to Azerbaijan is not only signs of cooperation, but during these visits, very important issues are being discussed. With respect to Georgia's aspirations to become a member of EU, we can understand it. And we wish Georgia success and congratulate our Georgian friends with this new developments and the status which they got. Understanding that, of course, it's a process. We know some countries waited for many years. Of course, don't want to mention Turkey because with Turkey it was absolutely unacceptable and unjust approach to keep Turkey far from Europe despite so many years of being a candidate. But also if you look to the Balkans, we'll see that countries still have to wait. And as far as I see the situation now, with respect to discussions on European track, there is not consensus about expansion. But this is my observation. Anyway, I wish success. When Georgia becomes members of EU, I'm sure nothing will change in our relations, and also with respect to energy cooperation, because you know that Europe is a main destination for our energy resources, whether it's oil or gas. And the European Energy Commission called Azerbaijan already a pan-European gas supplier, which is true. So many countries already are receiving our gas. Most of them are European, and many to come, because we are now in the process not only of negotiations, but also physical connections between European countries, and also with some in the process of negotiation. So nothing will change. And I think that though Azerbaijan does not have in its foreign policy concept the target to become EU member, for very pragmatic reason, just because we will never be allowed in. And the reason is also very clear. We understand it. We live in real world, not in virtual. So if you will not be allowed in, why should you knock the door? You will only irritate the home owner and also only humiliate yourself if they don't want you well. We found a way how to build relations. Though I would say that recent statement of Mr. Borrell are absolutely counterproductive. And just his yesterday's statements about 150,000 of Armenians who left Karabakh are false. I regret that such an experienced European diplomat is lying. Even Armenians themselves said there have been 100,000 of people who left Karabakh, not 150,000. If Mr. Borrell continues like that, in 1 month he will say there will be 200,000. It will depend on the dreams which he sees. But again, it is absolutely unacceptable, not only this manipulation with figures, but also accusations against Azerbaijan with respect to something which we haven't done. Especially it's strange that his country, as our foreign ministry already announced, suffered from separatism. So how can he defend separatists? So this is very strange. Approaching broader to your question, first, I'm sure that when Georgia becomes EU member, nothing will change in our relations. On the contrary, we will have another close friend in EU which will defend us. We hope that then Georgian members of European Parliament will educate European parliamentarians about Azerbaijan and they be more realistic. Why I say that? Because in one of my telephone conversations with President of European Council, Mr. Charles Michel, I told him that Chairman of European Parliament, Madam Mazzola, after our anti-terror operation, said that gas relationship and gas contract with Azerbaijan must be terminated. And I told Mr. Charles Michel that probably she does not know how these things are being managed, because if one side terminates the contract, it should pay a penalty. And first she should ask those who are in charge with energy policy of European Union, and how European Union asked Azerbaijan to help them last year with more gas for Europe because of the cuts of supplies from Russia, and how we responded. So unfortunately, we have these kind of people, I would say populist leaders in Europe, like Mr. Borrell, like Madam Mazzola, and I always prefer to speak openly because I fully disagree with their policy and their attitude to Azerbaijan, because it is not fair and it is not in the interest of European Union and European institutions. But in general, if we talk about European Commission, of course we have excellent relations and we highly value these relations. They are of strategic importance, and not only energy, not only gas, not only oil, soon it will be hydrogen. You know very well the project with Georgia, Azerbaijan, Romania, and Hungary are involved. So it's a big game changer, and we are already in the phase of implementation. Very soon we'll have a final report about feasibility study, and hopefully we'll start physical construction. It is transportation, it is connectivity. For people like Josep Borrell, it's enough to look at the map and to see where Azerbaijan is situated. And if they want to be active in Central Asia, and they do want, and we see the traffic in both directions, how they can avoid Azerbaijan. Are they going to contact Central Asia countries through Iran or through Russia? Or they have wings? So they have to think about that before making these statements.
Aziza Omarova.
Your Excellency, it's a great pleasure to be here because I'm from Uzbekistan. We observe many state visits between the countries, but I think also what is definitely worth mentioning, there is a very beautiful dynamic between the leaders of the two countries. I also have to say it was an excellent to hear that Uzbekistan was one of the first countries to support rebuilding efforts, specifically school in Fizuli. I think there's a great small contribution to the overall huge endeavor by your government. My question is about the connectivity efforts in light of Karabakh return, and specifically I would like to ask your opinion about the following. So we know very well that for Central Asia, Trans-Caspian corridor will create new opportunities, and it will be very promising in terms of connecting, as we know very well, the Black Sea, Mediterranean, and further to the Europe. In the meantime, we also have as a national priority development of the railroad between China, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan that, if connected with the middle corridor, can create win-win for Central Asian countries, connecting the South Asia all the way to the Europe. We also understand very well the opportunities in light of the return of Karabakh and a new geopolitical dynamic. But there are also some constraints. I would like to ask your opinion, what type of constraints you foresee and how we could possibly collectively work together to tackle them to make the beautiful projects happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to a little bit correct you. Uzbekistan was not one of the first countries, but was the first country which offered us this brotherly support. And as you know, with my brother President Mirziyoyev, we jointly inaugurated the school which was named after the great son of Uzbek people, Mirza Ulugh in Fizuli, and this was a great contribution to reconstruction and also great contribution to our brotherly relations, because people of Azerbaijan, not only those who live in Fizuli, will never forget that. I just recently had a chance to see President Mirziyoyev in Baku. He told me it's his third time during 1 year, and I reminded him that last year I visited Uzbekistan 3 times. So we have very active traffic of personal contacts, not to mention on the level of ministries. We have elaborated a very broad agenda of cooperation in transportation, energy, investments, in automobile industry. So really it's a partnership which both sides can be proud of, and with a great potential for the future. So we're just in the beginning of our mutual investment projects. We already created a joint investment fund with the initial reserves of $500 million. And already our teams are identifying the projects in both countries and in third countries which we will be jointly investing. With respect to connectivity, I congratulate you and also Kyrgyzstan and China with the launching of this important railroad project. I know that it was discussed for many years, and now it's already officially announced to be started. Of course, it will be a huge contribution to the middle corridor, and for us it will be, of course, very attractive because the direction is towards the Caspian. Even now, without this railroad, there are opportunities to use Trans-Caspian route for Uzbek companies, and they are doing it not in the large quantities, but I think now when we are actively working on issues related to digitalization of our transportation infrastructure and also on common policy on tariffs, it will be more attractive. So the route is definitely much more attractive from point of view of timing, but it is not competitive in comparison with the maritime route, which is obvious. So our task is to make the route more commercially attractive. And for that purpose, of course, joint policy on tariffs, digitalization, so that those who send cargo can trace the movement of their cargo, and not only that, and physical investments in infrastructure. We already completed fully the reconstruction of the railroad from Baku to the Georgian border. Now the train have a speed of 120 kilometers in comparison with 50, 60 several years ago, so it will be faster. At the same time, in I think a month or two, the expansion of Georgian segment of Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad also will be finished. And it is, again, 100% Azerbaijani investments, more than $100 million US. And that segment will be expanded from 1 million to 5 million tons, I say in a couple of months maximum. So this is a new opportunities for receiving new cargoes. And also a road which will go through liberated territories, particularly through Zangilan. Probably you've seen the railroad, which already is there. And we had a plan to continue this road through Armenia, but Armenia refused. So we agreed with Iranian side, and we are already building the bridge for cars and then the bridge for trains to bypass Armenia and to build the railroad on the southern bank of Aras River, about 50 kilometers, and then it enters Nakhichevan, and then there'll be a connection with the Turkish railroad system, because we were informed by Turkish side that Kars-Nakhchivan railroad also is planned to be built. So it will be another extension of the middle corridor. One goes through Georgia to Kars and to Mediterranean ports, and another goes through Zangilan, Iran, Nakhchivan, and again Turkey. So this increases physical capacity, but at the same time, in the meantime, we need also to make this road more commercially attractive. For that purpose, already we created a very efficient cooperation format between Azerbaijan, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and Turkey. And I think that if other countries of Central Asia, particularly Uzbekistan, would consider joining this format, it will be, I think, only better for all of us. This really is a new map, new transportation map of Eurasia with a great potential. And with respect to Karabakh reconstruction, actually, the main obstacle, of course, are landmines, apart from, and time. So our rival is time, because we want to do it as soon as possible, but apart from that, we don't have any other obstacles. We've accumulated financial resources for that. Reconstruction of Karabakh will be main part of our investment program. Just for comparison, I would say that we will spend for Karabakh reconstruction more, I mean investment, state investment project, more than for the rest of the country. Not just we neglect the rest of the country already enjoyed multi-billion investments during many years, and most of the infrastructure projects have already been completed. But because Karabakh is top priority, the area, and most important, the people who are waiting to go back home.
Our next speaker, Jordi Husia.
Thank you. Jordi Xuclà from Spain, professor of international relations, former member of the Spanish Parliament, and former member of PACE. President, it's an honor to be here. Had been very, very special to visit the liberated territories. When I was chair of the committee of the so-called Karabakh conflict in Council of Europe, and I had the responsibility to organize in the daily basis, in the regular basis, meetings between Azeris MPs and Armenian MPs in a very noisy manner, was difficult to imagine, to realize the end of this occupation and the solution based in international law and in the respect of the territorial integrity in a plural and diverse society. So I think that in terms of historical perspective, this is an historical moment. My question is about the new frame of relations between Azerbaijan and European Union. I guess that the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, have a realistic and common sense approach about the relations between Azerbaijan and European Union, based in this new frame of bilateral relations, overcame the so-called Eastern Partnership, which one is quite complex to harmonize. And based on geopolitical reasons, European Union find reliable partners, not only for energetical reasons, for new economic projects, and for geopolitical situations. On the other hand, we see how European Parliament and other bodies has passé with zero competence in international relations are easily to release some statements based in another level of politics. I think that European Council and European Commission works in the realistic approach and the other works in another world. All with all, I think that the balance of the new frame of relations between your country and the European Union could be very positive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I fully share your analysis, and what you say for me is very important because you are there, you are saying it from inside, and it totally corresponds to my understanding of the situation. With respect to European Council and European Commission, as you said, we have very good contacts, and the President of European Council and President of European Commission both visited Azerbaijan, and we broadly discussed issues related to our cooperation, not only energy, though it was one of the main topics of cooperation conversation. European Union is our main trading partner. It's almost 50% or close to that of our trade is a trade with European Union. With 9 members of European Union, Azerbaijan signed or adopted declarations on strategic partnership. So this is 1/3 of the member states. So this really demonstrates that our cooperation on national level and on the level of institutional contacts is very good. And being a strategic partner means a lot, so it's a big responsibility for cooperation. With respect to efforts of President of European Council, Charles Michel, Azerbaijan and me personally always supported his efforts in finding a long-lasting solution to the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And there have been several meetings organized by him in Brussels. We are now in the process of discussions about potentially a new meeting, and my assistant, Hikmet, is in regular contact with the team of President Charles Michel. We think that, taking into account that there have been already 5 meetings, or even more, 5 meetings, the next meeting should be result-oriented. We need to agree about the draft statement before. Of course, it must be agreed between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and European Council. And the meeting must be well prepared and result-oriented, because if it is not result-oriented, then it will send the wrong message to our peoples and also to international community. So that's our position, and I think it is met with understanding in Brussels. Also, with the European Commission, we work on different tracks. On the track, one track is Commission for Enlargement, when we have very active cooperation. Energy Commission. We organize regularly Advisory Council of the Southern Gas Corridor, which is chaired by European Energy Commission and Azerbaijani Minister of Energy. And annual and regular next meeting will take place within 2-3 months, again in Baku. We got a request from European Commission to increase our gas supply to Europe, taking into account the shortage, and we allocated substantial amounts of money, hundreds of millions of euros, if not billions, in order to increase the production from existing gas fields. And also one of the factors which will help us to supply more gas to Europe is energy efficiency and renewables. The more renewables we have, the more gas we will save, which we use for production of electricity. So very soon there'll be a new, important milestone, interconnector between Serbia and Bulgaria, which is ready, and Serbia will start to receive Azerbaijani gas. Already Hungary already started to receive, Romania, Albania hopefully soon will start also to receive Azerbaijani gas after the gasification project which we finance in Albania is over. And the countries like Italy, Bulgaria, Greece, members of European Union, they already, for many years, for several years, are recipients of Azerbaijani gas. So these are all very positive factors. And we talk about connectivity, we talk about trade, investments. But I agree there is a spoiler, which is the European Parliament, the group of very irresponsible people. Some of them, I think, behave like maniacs because their anti-Azerbaijani sentiments and statements are beyond any normal psychological status of a human being. I want to use maximum diplomatic vocabulary. So what can we do? They adopted, I think, more than 10 anti-Azerbaijani resolutions. One more, one less, doesn't make any difference for us. It is regretful. And what we regret most of all is that we don't consider all the members of the European Union, the word which I used, but those who are organizing anti-Azerbaijani orchestra, they brainwash the others. So many of the members think that Azerbaijan is like these people present us. Some of the anti-Azerbaijani activists, fortunately, no longer are there, like Madam Yeva Kaili, who was one of the activists of anti-Azerbaijani front, but we know what happened to her, and it was on media, and I think this also reflects that the European Parliament needs to address its own issues with corruption first, before accusing someone of any wrongdoing. And of course, it is not only for the government of Azerbaijan, but for the people of Azerbaijan. When they misinterpret the situation in the Caucasus, when they accuse us, the country which suffered occupation, devastation, and genocide, accuse us for restoration of our sovereignty and territorial integrity, they speak against 10 million of Azerbaijani people. They need to understand it. If they select me as a target and use insulting statements against me, for me it doesn't mean anything. But for people of Azerbaijan who stand behind me and stood behind me during the war and during the anti-terror operation, and now this is a signal for them that this is group of people which treat Azerbaijan like an enemy. So this is regretful. The noise which they produce is not pleasant. It is not damaging. We can live with that, but it is not pleasant. So, and by the way, we've already for many years stopped any official contacts with European Parliament and officially announced that. And now we have no interaction. But with European Commission, as you mentioned, as I also want to, say that situation is absolutely different. It is moving in the positive direction with minor episodes, which I already mentioned, with respect to your countrymen, unfortunately.
Daria Ischenko.
Thank you very much. German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would like, my question is also on the, your current position about the Western platforms for peace talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan. What is your current position? Because Baku has recently chosen not to participate in Grenada, Brussels, and Washington. So how do you see the future potential? You already touched upon the role of EU, and I would like to ask you to focus specifically on the role of the EU, of the European Union, given also its interest in energy and connectivity. And in connection to this, relatedly or unrelatedly, what is also your assessment of the future potential of the platform of 3+2 that Baku has initiated and has been recently revived? How do you see the future of this regional platform of solving regional problems with regional partners? Çok sağ olun.
Thank you. I already spoke a little bit about EU mediation. It was basically a mediation of the President of European Council. When last year at the sidelines of the European Political Community Summit in Prague, there was a proposal to invite President of France to that meeting between President Michel, Prime Minister Pashinyan and myself. I did not object because I thought that at that time I thought that that can be useful. But unfortunately, a week after the meeting, and the meeting, by the way, was as a result, I consider it positively because at that meeting on the 6th of October, Prime Minister Pashinyan officially recognized Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. Yes, later he made different statements, including those which I already referred to this September, congratulating so-called Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, but at the same time that we considered as a positive result of the meeting in Prague. And we were ready to continue in this format, but unfortunately a week after, President of France, in one of the TV interview, used very strange and inappropriate wording about Azerbaijan, about what we've done, and actually himself cut himself from the process, because our position was very clear. You can be mediator when you are neutral. If you take sides, you lose the chance to be mediator. We cannot influence a country not to take sides. There are different reasons for that. But in this case, the chance to be mediator is lost. And that's what happened. And we officially announced that we do not consider any longer as appropriate any participation of any representative for France in normalization process between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Therefore, and that for that particular reason, I did not go to Granada. But before Granada, there was also Chisinau. And in Chisinau also was present Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, who said, and I remember, when you need us, you tell us. And that was a very wise approach, because you cannot impose yourself to be a mediator when somebody doesn't want. Granada meeting was scheduled on the 5th of October. And coming back to the previous question, the same day European Parliament organized discussions on Azerbaijan. So they deliberately planned this anti-Azerbaijani resolution to be adopted the day I was supposed to be in Granada in order to demonstrate their position on Azerbaijan. So that was also a reason why I did not go. And first reason was France. And third reason was that that meeting was not prepared. This meeting was supposed to take place 2 weeks after anti-terror operation, 2 weeks after the total change of the situation on the ground. Therefore, the meeting should have been prepared. What kind of documents we are planning to adopt? What will be the statements? How the statements should be agreed? There was nothing about that, no information about that. So that's why I did not participate. But I was very surprised that they convened this meeting without me. So there is a Russian saying, «Без меня меня женили». It means that you married me without myself. So how they can adopt a resolution on Azerbaijan, Armenia, 4 of them without me, I still cannot understand. So this is the current situation. What we have now on the table, we have a mediation process which is organized by European Council. We have one track of negotiations between foreign ministers, which we call the Moscow track. And we had, until recent famous hearings in US Congress, a so-called Washington track, where the foreign ministers met in Washington. So now it seems that Washington track also is out of the picture, because the official representative of a State Department, who is today here in Baku, said that with Azerbaijan there will be no business as usual, and accused Azerbaijan of what Azerbaijan has not done. So if there is no business as usual, it means no business as usual on every track. And at the same time, it was announced that they put a restriction on the visits of high-ranking Azerbaijani officials to the United States for the first time in the history of our relations with the United States, which are of strategic importance for both countries. This administration is trying to ruin them. I don't know for which reason. So we said, okay, if there will be no high-ranking official visits from Azerbaijan to the United States, then how our foreign minister can go there? You say there have been no visits, but you invite our foreign minister. Can you explain us? And, well, don't want to go much into details. So if no business as usual, okay, we accept it. Then it means that Washington is also out of the picture. So either they should say that business as usual continues, and I hope to hear it today, and we will restore the Washington process, or there'll be only Brussels and Moscow. And maybe there'll be also a bilateral, because, for instance, I can tell you that co-chairs of the joint commissions on commissions on delimitation of Armenia and Azerbaijan met on the 30th of April on our border, conditional, we call it, conditional border, and discussed the issues of delimitation. So there can be even just a bilateral track between Azerbaijan and Armenia without any mediation. This is also an option. Mediation, I think, can be helpful from point of view of elaboration maybe of some ideas from the mediator, which both sides cannot, due to some reasons, elaborate. But if mediation process is over, then it will be a bilateral track. So this is with respect to the negotiation process. Apart from that, I already said with European Union our relations are well balanced, basically positive. We were working actively on the new document of cooperation. It is now on a standby, but I hope soon we can restart our joint activity on finalizing, because more than 90% of that new cooperation agreement was already agreed. Thank you.
Our next question, Stefan Fenkart.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for hosting us here. It is my first time that I'm participating in this forum, and my question goes a little bit back to what you already said earlier. I'm from Austria. I am working for the International Institute for Peace, so it is going to be about peace. And with the long history of the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, you know, it's so much trauma, so much lack of trust especially, and obviously as well also this feeling of injustice. So you also said, and research and data also shows that peace agreements are most sustainable if they are also perceived as just by all parties involved. So that is one thing. And so my question would be, if justice is a very important thing for that, do you think that tackling issues of transitional justice, truth and reconciliation from all the wars, so the first and the second, including also the terror operation, like if you put it all together, could actually lead to a more successful and sustainable peace or even peace process? And if so, you know, I'm thinking about examples of German-French rapprochements or a very long-term perspective, and maybe even the South African example, even though knowing it's there is no blueprint for that. But how would you assess this, and who could be maybe a moderator or facilitator in this? And since I'm from Austria, what about Austria? Maybe we are a neutral country, but having like all the international organizations still there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Austria can be a good mediator for those particular reasons which you mentioned, and also because on international events we all sit one next to another due to the alphabet. So we always have a chance sitting on the international event to exchange views with Austrian and Armenian colleagues. With respect to peace agreement, I think, as I said already, I think now we are closer to that. Because when we initiated the process, one of the issues of disagreement was the Armenian side's effort to integrate into peace agreement reference to so-called Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, which of course we could not accept. And they tried to integrate it through different wording schemes, but it was more or less the same. Our approach was that we cannot specify on that, and the agreement between two countries must be fully reciprocal. Therefore, if they want to reflect in the draft agreement issue of Armenians who live in Azerbaijan as national minority, then it must be reciprocally also reflected the rights for Azerbaijanis who were deported forcefully from Armenia to come back to Armenia and to live there. And their rights and security must be protected the same way like rights and security of Armenians in Karabakh. And unfortunately, Armenian side always rejected that, which was not very logical, because we did not offer something extraordinary, just reciprocal. Or another option was not to reflect this topic at all. So after September 19 anti-terror operation, it seems that this obstacle no longer exists. Either we will reflect both national minorities in peace agreement, or it will not be reflected at all. Other paragraphs or articles of peace agreement are less problematic. I would not say that they are all already agreed, but I think that with respect to phraseology, with respect to the wording, of course every word has some political meaning behind it, but it is agreeable. It's a matter of political will only. And as I said, when we were waiting for Armenian response for 70 days, just for example, I can tell you when we were sending our comments to Armenia, usually it didn't take more than 14, 15 days. So when they delayed for 70 days, this means something. And of course, it is not a unilateral process. If Armenia thinks that we need peace more than they do, I think they're wrong. We need peace the same way they do. If they need it, we need it. If they don't need, we don't need. Even before anti-terror operations, in my contacts with the Armenian side, whether it was in Brussels, in the presence of President Charles Michel, or on the sidelines of some international events, I said, if you do not recognize Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, Karabakh included, we will not recognize your territorial integrity. If you will continue to contest our integrity, we will contest your integrity. And I told him, that believe me, we have more rights, more historical rights, not to recognize your territorial integrity, because we all know how the maps of the Southern Caucasus look like in the beginning of 20th century. They're available. We all know how the Bolsheviks took Zangezur from Azerbaijan November 1920 and adjusted it to Armenia just less than 6 months after Sovietization of Azerbaijan. This part was taken from us. So I told him that we have more historical and political and legal rights to contest your territorial integrity. So I don't advise you. And now it is the same. So if they recognize, not by statement, but by signature, territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, we will do the same. Many times I said that we do not have any plans to occupy Armenian territory, as sometimes we are accused without any grounds of that. If we wanted, we would have done it. I can tell you absolutely openly, and from all points of view, it is not a big problem. In one day, they laid down their weapons in Karabakh, and our flag was raised in Hankandi. So we don't want it, again. And the fact that we don't do it means that what I say is right. But at the same time, we want that there'll be no potential risk to Azerbaijan in the future. Therefore, we are always raising the issue of weaponization of Armenia. And we think that this is counterproductive and this is provocative. As the countries who supply Armenia with weapons, like France and India, now pour the oil on fire and create unrealistic illusions in Armenia that using these weapons, they can take back Karabakh. I don't want to go into details about the quality of these weapons, though I know what kind of weapons these are. But even if there's a state-of-the-art weapons, they have no chance. Because the war and the result of war is decided not by weapons, but by people, by spirit. And during the Second Karabakh War, according to Armenians' own statement, there have been 12,000 deserters from the battlefield in Armenian army and 0 in Azerbaijani army. So they have no chance. So my message to them is, don't create situation here in the region when we will be sure that you are planning to damage us. We are not sure yet, That's why we do not react. We observe. What France is supplying to Armenia, those armored vehicles which nobody wants to buy, they do not possess any danger to us. But if we see that there is some serious installation which can be harmful, we will have to react. And I informed everybody about that, so there'll be no complaints. We will have to react because every country has to protect its people. And I hope there'll be no need for that. But for that, these new Armenian sponsors, which wants to play a role of the new big brother, should relax and enjoy themselves in their beautiful capital.
Ilian Chifu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you. It was an excellent occasion once again to see the region and what you have done in terms of post-conflict reconstruction and the whole efforts that the Azeri has done. My question goes on the need to have the return of the Azeri in Armenia if they want to do so. So maybe it's a part of the agreement, maybe some other agreement will conceive that after peace agreement. Armenians are already able to come back to Karabakh as Azeri citizens, you already underlined. But my question is, if Azerbaijan considers some policies in order to re-attract the Armenians who used to live in Karabakh, in order to offer to them some conditions in such a way that that type of attraction would mean something and will show a lot in political terms. Thank you very much.
I already said that those who want to come back, they can come back. Their apartments, their houses stay untouched, unlike what you've seen in Zengilan and in other parts, totally destroyed. There is a full protection of the Armenian historical heritage, and our military police is now protecting very important sites, including the property of the people. So if they want to become citizens of Azerbaijan, as I said, another option is to have a work permit or residence permit based on the common practice which every country has, based on quotas which every country has for migrant labor force that can be organized. And of course, with respect to return of Azerbaijanis to territory of Armenia, we expect from Armenia the same approach, at least to do the same. Also to create an electronic reintegration portal, to provide information about our villages. Most of the villages where Azerbaijanis lived are either destroyed or abandoned. Because of the poor demographic situation in Armenia, they cannot organize settlement in Azerbaijani villages the way how they want. In some they live, but most of them are empty. So at least to allow Azerbaijanis to come, to see, to visit, I think that could be a good sign of reconciliation, because there was already in the questions, the comments about some historical parallels like French-German rapprochement, and I would also say Soviet-German after such a bloody Second World War. In less than 2 decades, Soviet Union and the Federal Republic of Germany became close partners, not to mention the German Democratic Republic, which immediately, was, kind of considered as a very friendly, and including the people who lived there, friendly people to people who lived in Soviet Union. So I think it is a great example of reconciliation, what happened between Soviet Union and Germany. Therefore, we think and we know that Azerbaijanis who have roots in today's territory of Armenia are eager to go back. Some of them may consider, and I think it is absolutely realistic, to resettle there in their villages. Some want just to come and visit the graves of their ancestors. Some want to just go visit and come back. So this must be allowed. Armenia should not block this natural humanitarian need of hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis who have been deported from there. We demonstrate how it should be. We demonstrate how their property, how their religious sites must be protected, and everyone who goes now to Khankandi and to other places where there was a majority of Armenian population can see it. So we expect them to do the same, and that will be a demonstration of their will for peace.
Farhad Birinci, our next question.
Thank you, Mr. President, for accepting us. It's an honor to be here. Actually, I want to ask you about the 9th article of the Territorial Declaration, which we call Zengezur Corridor. And when I talk to my Western colleagues, and even in the Western media, some claims that Azerbaijan will militarily force Armenia in order to implement this article. What can you say the process of the implementation of this corridor? And have you ever talked with your counterpart, I mean Pashinyan administration, about implementation of this process? Thank you.
Yes, I talked many times to Prime Minister of Armenia and asked him why do not they comply with their own commitments. Because as I mentioned, Article 9 clearly says that the connection between western regions of Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan must be provided, and even it says who will provide control and security. It is the Russian Border Security Forces, which is part of Russian FSB. And this is what Mr. Pashinyan signed himself. And now, when he doesn't want any longer neither this route nor Russian involvement in that, actually it doesn't mean a lot from legal point of view. It's his commitment. What can we do? We can only say that they violate their commitment. Azerbaijan always respects its international commitments, but from Armenian side we don't see the same. And during my numerous meetings in Brussels with Prime Minister of Armenia, I told him even a couple of years ago that we already started to build a railroad connection. Why don't you at least start to prepare feasibility study? And there was no answer to that. So I can tell you that these 42 kilometers of the railroad which existed in Soviet times is not ready not only for construction, but even feasibility study have not been completed, maybe even not started. So that means that they don't need that road. Well, we waited, and we've been accused that we will take it by force. I'm already tired to say that we don't have such an intention. And then we had to look for other options. We need to have these connections with Nakhchivan and then through Nakhchivan with Turkey. And so we agreed with the Iranian side to build a bypass. And yes, it will cost more, but it's an option. Already construction started. And now governmental officials from both countries already made a groundbreaking ceremony there in the village of Aghband of Zengilan district of the construction of the automobile bridge, and then will be a railroad bridge. So that will be done, and what Armenia is losing a lot. First, this will not be only the road between Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic of Azerbaijan. This will be international transportation corridor. A lot of cargoes will come from Central Asia. We expect a lot of cargoes to come from China. So existing connections between Azerbaijan and Turkey, as I said, the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad, even expanded, will not be able to absorb all the cargoes. So here, on this southern route, we will have minimum from 5 to 7 million tons of cargo per year in the beginning, which will be enough. So Armenia deprived itself from this, and also deprived itself from opening of all other communications with Azerbaijan. Because now they don't have railroad connection with Russia, because Georgian road, due to Abkhazia separatist region, is closed. They don't have it through Azerbaijan. Their railroad with Turkey and the border is closed. So they again in the deadlock. So I think for them there are two options now. Either to start immediately at their own expense or with some European funds money to build the necessary 42 kilometers of railroad, which will be considered as their sovereign territory. We don't have any, how to say, reservations with respect to their sovereignty, but there must be easy access from mainland Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan. And as I told Prime Minister Pashinyan, that will be a road from Azerbaijan to Azerbaijan, and there should be no custom duties, no checks, no border security, when it goes from mainland to Nakhchivan. When it goes from other destination, from Eastern Caspian region to Armenia, or even, yes, okay, of course, you can have all these customs duties as in any other country. But from Azerbaijan to Azerbaijan, there should be no checks, no interference, and this is our legitimate right. And actually, I can tell you that one of the issues which we discussed in Brussels at the meeting organized by President Michel was to use experience of Russian Kaliningrad railroad connection. So all that possible, but just Armenia didn't want. They wanted to block us from this access. And now when they realized that we don't need it any longer, they started to complain. And even we got some very strange statement from US State Department officials that United States will not allow this to happen if it doesn't go through Armenia. So what can I say? Only just to say, what is that? We wanted to do it through Armenia for 3 years. If you want to do it through Armenia, go and tell your new Armenian friends. So how can you interfere into our relations with Iran? You say we will not allow it to be built through. How you are not to allow? You will bomb it, or what you are going to do? So these irresponsible statements actually do not serve any good service to those who articulate them, and of course seriously deteriorates the stability and predictability in the region, including the connectivity projects. And by the way, also I already spoke about that, we got information from our partners in Turkey that Kars-Nakhchivan Railroad also is planned to be built, and thus it will be, as I said, a transportation corridor which will serve the benefit of many countries.
Mr. President, we have already taken too much of your time and coming to the end of the designated time frame, but still we have 10 speakers in our list. If you allow, can we group the questions, 3 as one group, and asking the questions group by group?
Maybe let's continue as we go, and then we will see.
We see. Okay. Then Rachel Rudolph.
Mr. President, thank you. Although I'm originally from the United States, I live in the high-tech area for the Greater Bay, Guangdong Province, People's Republic of China. I represent two universities, one in Smithfield, Rhode Island, but also the Beijing Institute of Technology. My question for you is, given that true peace requires transformation of the conflict environment, what specific incentive schemes does your government have for facilitating the return of Azerbaijanis to the liberated areas, and how will they specifically facilitate a peaceful conflict environment?
Prior to the beginning of the Great Reconstruction Project, we conducted a survey based on my instructions among the former refugees. It was not published, it was just for our internal use, because we needed to understand how many of them are planning to return. Because we clearly understood that 30 years have passed. Many of those who have been deported already, unfortunately, died. Children, young generation, and they haven't seen these places ever. And also many of the former refugees, they've been having jobs. So we needed to know, and I was very glad, and that's what I expected, that absolute majority said that they would like to return. But of course, we clearly understood that to return, where to return? There's nowhere to return. We need to create such a conditions for them that will be not even the same like here, but even better. And now I talk not only about those who live still in the dormitories and in very poor conditions, but even those 300,000 former refugees for whom we built new houses and provided them with flats. So conditions in Karabakh and Zangezur must be better. And the indicator that the process started and will actually be even broader than I expected, I think you also saw it in Zangilan in Agali. When you saw children, when you saw young people who have never seen those places, and they came. And I was there many times and was asking, are you not missing Baku or Sumgait? You lived in big cities, now you came here to a village, still isolated because there's nothing around. No, they enjoy their life. And not only those who lived there and came back, these people, is understandable, they have special feelings, but even those, their children, grandchildren. So this is very important, I would say, moral factor and psychological factor, because without that, no matter what we do there, we'll have zero effect. So this is important, they want to go back. Now, where they will go back, and here we come to what probably you've heard yesterday in Zengilan from my representatives, how we plan the cities, the ecological situation. It will be totally ecologically friendly, green energy zone, and of course employment. Probably they told you also about these industrial facilities which have been created in Agdam and in Jabrail and also in Lachin. I would recommend maybe next time when you convene your forum to go to Lachin, because it is now the most inhabited, already the most inhabited city around all the liberated areas. And by the next spring, because I know you have your forums twice a year, by the next spring there'll be already thousands of people there. So this is, how to say, the plan, and so far it is successful. You know about the figures, 140,000 until the end of 2026, absolutely realistic. And one more important issue. With respect to the liberated territories, we also test the new model of governance. As you probably noticed, there is an Institute of President's Special Representatives. I have 4 of them so far. There'll be more. And it is absolutely new form of management. And this positive experience later maybe will be transformed to the rest of the country. The technological development, the ecologically friendly business environment, all that will be transferred. So we already have these plans. We did not yet put it on paper because first we need to return the main part of the former refugees, but this will be a roadmap for reconstruction and development of the rest of Azerbaijan. For instance, after we announced the Karabakh and Eastern Zengezur as a green energy zone, the next step was done with Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, and now we have a plan of building 1,500 renewable sources of energy in Nakhchivan. We adopted a special state development program for Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, more or less the same like for Karabakh and Eastern Zengezur program, which is called Big Return. We already assigned companies, international companies, which help us to plan the city planning in Karabakh, to do the same in Nakhchivan, taking into account already existing city infrastructure. And because geographically and culturally it was more or less the same region, Karabakh, Zengezur, Nakhchivan, it is more or less the same geographical and cultural environment. So this will cover a big part of Azerbaijani territory. In total will be 1/4 of Azerbaijan and the rest part of the country. So this reconstruction will be a trigger for economic development, for employment, for relocation of labor resources, which we have. It will be also important for cities like Baku and Sumgait, which become more and more inhabited. So it will have a multiplicative positive effect. But again, number one is the former refugees and their life, their decent and life in dignity and on their own land.
Our next question, Jakub Koreba.
Use yours. Sorry, Your Excellency. My name is Jakub Koreba, myself from Poland, but representing AVIM Center for Eurasian Studies. It's a pleasure and great honor to be here, especially that I remember the feeling I had after the meeting in May, after listening to what you said. I had this feeling, this impression that next meeting will happen in very optimistic circumstances, so that I would like to congratulate you and the people of Azerbaijan with victory. My question is about regional integration. Despite some idealistic optimism we see among Eastern partners, your neighbors and our neighbors, we all understand that European integration has its limits, political, technical, ideological, and that the European Union is probably not in its best shape to design and implement strategic long-term decisions toward Eastern partners. That's why I would like to say, if you see any sense and any chance for a regional integration, for creation of a kind of South Caucasian Benelux. And if yes, if you see and expect to see a reaction in Tbilisi and especially in Yerevan.
Thank you very much. I think what you say is absolutely realistic, and thank you for your words with respect to our victory. And I remember our meeting in Shusha, so thank you for coming back. I think it's absolutely realistic, and actually that was also part of our discussions with my Georgian colleague, Prime Minister Garibashvili. There is a chance now for Southern Caucasus to start the process of at least consultation. Maybe it's earlier to talk about integration, but we should start from consultations, and I think the first consultations took place in Georgia just recently on the sidelines of one international event. Prime ministers of 3 Southern Caucasian countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, met there. So that's a positive sign. I think there can be very practical impacts of this cooperation, because only if you look at the development of Georgia and Azerbaijan during the last 30 years of independence, we'll see how 2 countries are integrated, how 2 countries are implementing common projects of mutual benefit, and how these 2 countries became together much more important for Europe rather than if they were not together. Can Armenia join these already existing projects? Yes, when we sign peace agreement, definitely. What Armenia can contribute to this cooperation, this is so far an open question, because they not only need to have rights, but also responsibility. Today, Georgia and Azerbaijan already have big assets. Oil pipelines, gas pipelines, transportation, railroads, now will be energy cable, trade, also matters related to security. Recently in Baku, there was a meeting of defense ministers of Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Georgia. This is a traditional. We have trilateral cooperation not only on defense but also on economy, on other areas. Will Armenia demonstrate its willingness to be a good neighbor and to be supportive? Again, it's an open question. I think if they think strategically, that's the only way for Armenia to preserve its sovereignty. Because what is happening now, as we observe from Baku in Armenian government, is chaotic shifts from one pole to another. And they think that that another pole will be a kind of a salvation for them. No, it will be just another big brother, nothing more than that. And whether this big brother will be better than the previous one, I frankly doubt. Because it is very far away. It is not very, how to say, strongly committed to the region, and from all points of view pursues its own political or maybe personal ambitional ideas. So Armenia, in order to be part of that integration, needs to demonstrate its willingness. And as I said, peace agreement is, of course, the main prerequisite, but not the only one. They need to demonstrate that we are now consider each other as partners. This is possible. In the meantime, the process of reconciliation should go. There must be more contacts between intellectuals, between people who can influence public opinion, and there must be less demonstration of hatred. Because when we sent our team to participate at the sporting event in Yerevan, and in front of Prime Minister Pashinyan, Azerbaijani flag was burned, so what kind of message do they send? And that immediately was a big step back from our plans, and maybe their plans also. But these things, they're very sensitive, they're emotional, but also very illustrative. So can we feel ourselves, I mean, both safe visiting each other? It's still a big question. But potential is here. I know that Georgian government completely shares this view. We still did not have a very clear demonstration of position from Armenia, but if it happens, we can start. And they will feel themselves much more on the safe side. Our Georgian friends here, they know that today Georgia's energy security is absolutely on the safe side, no matter what happens between big players, no matter what is the weather, because it is a reliable source of supply. We know that for Azerbaijan, the reliable transit route is through Georgia. So this is interconnection, this is, if you can use the word, interdependence, which is good, which strengthens the friendship. So can be projects related to power generation, natural gas, fuel, transit, opening of transportation, but for 3 years, Armenia was blocking the opening of Zangezur corridor. It was not us. Turkey was actively promoting. Azerbaijan was promoting. Many other countries, but they were blocking. So I think they need to rethink the situation, and also they need to understand that no matter how strong your big brother is, you live here among these countries. You'll have to find your place.
Our next question, Juan Batalem.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Juan Bataleme from Argentina, the Argentine Council of International Relations. Allow me to join my colleagues in thanking you your country's hospitality. My question is quite simple. How difficult was and how long took you to prepare a military able to re-establish territorial integrity? Thank you.
Well, it's a topic for another conference. Question is short, but answer cannot be. It can be either very short or very long, I don't know. Now we already ran off our time. But yes, it was a long time of preparation. Economic first. We needed to have a self-sufficient economy and not to depend on any other country. Political independence, decisions should have been taken in Baku, not in other capitals, as sometimes happens in some countries. Consolidation of society, young generation be raised in the patriotic spirit. A lot in preparation was done in the families. I would say number one of the patriotic mood was created in the families, and not only in the families of former refugees, because in all the families, and also at schools. So these are the main factors. Weapons, technology, yes, very important, in order to minimize the losses. They can help you to minimize the losses. And the fact that we, the country which, the side which was climbing the mountains, had 2 times at least less losses during Second Karabakh War than Armenia, who was trying to protect, sitting on the hills and with the 6 lines of defense, is because of the sophisticated weapons. But also the number one is the training of military servicemen and the spirit. So those who visited Shusha probably have seen what kind of cliffs we had to climb with just light weapons in order to liberate Shusha. So it took a lot of time, but without these factors, and of course consolidation of all the society around this national idea, the victory wouldn't have been possible. So I tried to be as short as possible. Maybe next time we will dedicate the conference to that and we'll speak for hours. Thank you.
Brice Lalonde.
Mr. President, thank you for your gracious invitation. I am from one of these European beautiful countries. I think I have some messages to convey back home.
Why you are sitting then? I understand why you're sitting in the second row.
Nobody is perfect, as you know, Mr. President. But it's true. There's misconceptions, misunderstandings. So how can we dissipate these misunderstandings? That's one of my main questions. Right now, at this moment, there's a huge climate conference in Dubai. These climate conferences, they bring 70,000 people, especially young people, interested in the future. Next year, we don't know where this conference will happen, but it could happen here. It could happen here, and you have a lot to say, Mr. President. You talked about hydrogen, you talked about renewables, you've built a big solar power plant south of Baku. I think it would be, in my view, it would be a good idea. And also because gas-producing countries have a lot to do to help countries to replace coal, for instance. So in my view, and this is my question, would it be a good idea to organize a climate conference in Baku as soon as possible?
Thank you very much. I think it will be a great idea, and we are working on that. Don't want to, run before the train, but I hope soon we may have good news. You know that Azerbaijan is bidding for COP29, and there are certain problems in getting the conference to Baku. Hopefully, very soon we can find a good resolution to this problem, and that will be another important step towards peace, which we were just talking about. Azerbaijan is ready to host COP29. We have a lot to report. When Soviet Union collapsed, we got absolutely destroyed oil and gas infrastructure, great decline in oil production, and the territories around Baku looking like an ecological catastrophe. So now it's very difficult to imagine when you look at the Olympic Stadium, what was before there. If you look to our water sports center, it was all oil lakes. And we had to spend a lot of money to clean. So we demonstrate that we not only produce, but we also clean the area. Still a lot is to be done, but this is, I think, good indicator of responsibility. And also having 2.6 trillion of natural gas deposits with existing pipelines and with oil deposits, with, fully providing our energy security to invest to renewables is also sign of our responsibility, and also will have a very big practical impact. I already said, if we reduce the consumption of natural gas to produce electricity 50% only due to renewables, we will send another 2.53 billion cubic meters of gas to Europe, which needs it. So it will be a win-win situation, and the next COP is next year. So if that last obstacle is already lifted, then all of us will be next, probably these days it will take place, and maybe we'll have good conference of ADA University on the sidelines, devoted to particularly this issue. Thank you.
Our next question, Valentina Chabert.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is an honor meeting you here after our meeting in Shusha. My question concerns environmental damages in Karabakh, which are one of the collateral effects of 30 years of occupation. And after the liberation of the whole territory last September, how is the environmental condition of the formerly occupied territories? And do you have plans to legally assess the international responsibility of Armenia and of private companies that committed environmental harm during occupation? Thank you.
With respect to the companies which had illegal activity on the occupied territories, the legal procedure have already started right after the end of the Second Karabakh War, particularly with respect to the companies which were involved in mining, in producing of gold and other precious metals. You know that this legal process takes time, but already almost for 3 years we are in the active phase working with different lawyers firms in order to bring to justice those who illegally excavated our natural resources. Now the situation in the newly liberated territories is in the process of assessment. There's a special team consisting of representatives of different governmental bodies, which now continue monitoring village by village, side by side, evaluate what has been done, and including the ecological damage. I do not expect much of ecological damage on this territory, which was liberated in September, because that territory was mainly inhabited by Armenian population. They created damage basically in the territories where there was the Azerbaijani population. Basically, the biggest damage was made to the forests of Kelbecer, Lachin, and Zengilan. More than 60,000 hectares of trees have been cut. And this is an analysis based on the satellite images before and after, and also on our physical monitoring. Of course, a big concern is with respect to the trans-boundary rivers pollution, particularly the river which goes through Zengilan, Okhchuchay, which sometimes the color of the river becomes yellow. And this is really an ecological disaster. So main concern now is still to assess properly the ecological damage on the territories which were liberated in 2020. Now on these newly liberated territories, mainly now concentration is on proper assessment of property and also illegal entrepreneurship. Because with respect to that, it was not only local separatist leaders who owned those factories, but also representatives of our Armenian diaspora in different countries. So they must be brought to justice, and I'm sure, though it is a long process, we understand, but we are going after them.
Jean de Brabander.
Your Excellency, first of all, I would like to join my preceding speakers in congratulating you about the evolution in Karabakh. As Mr. Lalonde comes from a beautiful country, comes from a beautiful capital in Europe, as advisor of the Brussels Diplomatic Academy. My question is more regarding a topic that has already been raised and already been answered partially, regarding the middle corridor. I started looking at the region after reading a book of Peter Frankopan, and I immediately acknowledged the importance of the region, and especially the Caspian Basin. But I never expected that, caused by the circumstances, the middle corridor would be of such a big importance. Now my question is more, let's say, narrowed down than to what has already been discussed. My question is, when it comes to maritime activities, are there already initiatives to enforce capacity and training personnel for the triangular connection between Akto, Baku, and Turkmenbashi? And in next to that question, the country of Turkmenistan hasn't been raised yet. So how do you see a possible connection with Turkmenistan?
Yes, Azerbaijan is now providing the transit service for countries of Central Asia, primarily Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. Most of the transit from Eastern Caspian comes from these two countries and also from other countries of Central Asia and also partly from China. Oil from Turkmenistan already for many years is being transported by our tankers and is put into Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline. Oil from Kazakhstan this year started, though still in modest quantities. Agreement was signed for 1.5 million tons of oil. Also is being brought here and put into the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan. So it's a very good project which actually allows also Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan to full in larger capacity than it used to be. And for our partners across the Caspian, it's an opportunity also to diversify their supply routes, which is absolutely understandable. We are now in the process of evaluation of the potential of expanding of our shipyard. This is very optimistic information. Now our shipyard can produce all types of vessels, but just for comparison, if we talk about tankers of 12,000 tons capacity, 6 tankers of this capacity can be produced per year now. So now upgradal of the shipyard will allow us to produce from 10 to 15 tankers. Not all of them will be tankers, there'll be dry cargo vessels, there'll be ferry boats, but just for better understanding. So this is reflection of the importance of the Middle Corridor, and this is the reflection of our perception of the potential cargo, because definitely the cargo through Trans-Caspian route will grow. For that purpose, we are now already in the phase of expansion of our trade seaport from existing capacity of 15 million tons to 25 million tons, which we did not plan actually because we did not have even 15 million tons, but we will have, and including 1 million TEU. So this is for the coming maybe 2-3 years, our contribution to the Middle Corridor. In the meantime, we also initiated the multilateral meeting of corresponding officials from transportation units of Azerbaijan, Turkey, Kazakhstan, and Georgia. Created already a format of cooperation, as I said, working on tariffs and digitalization, and also on customs administration, because a lot of time is lost on the customs, because time is our main, how to say, one of the main attractions. So if we'll have a more unification or more coordination between the customs of all the countries, then it will be much faster. Plus, as I already said, physical expansion of railroad capacity. So all that is being done on Azerbaijani territory, and we actually completed that. In the meantime, we're working actively on the north-south transportation corridor, which also crosses Azerbaijan, and which on our territory is totally completed. Now only we need to upgrade the capacity of the north-south, the same as we did with railroad from Baku to Georgian border. We need to do the same from our border with Russia to our border with Iran. So upgradal, but physically railroad exists. And this also can be part of the Middle Corridor, because it's also corridor like southwest from Persian Gulf to Azerbaijan and then to Georgia. It can be from the north, from Russia. By the way, it is already used by several Russian companies, the routes from Azerbaijan to Georgia and Europe. So a lot of potential. Positive, one of the positive factors is good level of relationship between all the countries involved, Central Asia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey. This is important factor. And how to say, common benefit, shared benefit. But of course, just one more comment, that the recent geopolitical situation, the recent changes in transportation facilities, of course, contributed, if I may use this word, to the importance of the corridor through Caspian, largely.
İlayda Nishar.
Thank you very much. I'm from the Overseas Development Institute based in London. Firstly, just to echo some of the comments made by my other fellow participants, it was a great opportunity yesterday to be in Zangilan after the trip to Shusha, and to have the opportunity to meet with your representatives there. I'd be interested to know, how does Azerbaijan's focus on technical innovations, especially in sectors like artificial intelligence and information technology, impact its regional influence and geopolitical positioning in relation to other tech-driven nations? And if you could elaborate just a little bit more, I know we've spoken about this already, but on Azerbaijan's role in promoting regional stability and cooperation in the South Caucasus region, particularly in the wake of the Ukraine war. Thank you.
Well, on technological development, it's one of the important factors on our development agenda. Last October, we hosted the International Astronautical Congress, which is the biggest event in that area on global scale. By the way, we hosted it for the second time. First time it was during the times of the Soviet Union. It was hosted in Baku in 1973, and now 50 years after, again in Baku. And one of the topics which was discussed, and by the way, at the inaugural opening session of the Congress, the famous researcher of artificial intelligence, Mr. very famous writer Harari, he spoke there about that, about the danger, about the potential, and it was a very interesting presentation. So we are working on that. We restructured our Ministry of Communications into a Ministry of Digital Transformation and Transportation. We already have certain experience in development of space industry with free satellites and more other projects to come. One of the factors which also demonstrates our readiness to technological transformation is that Davos World Economic Forum have selected Azerbaijan as a regional location for its Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution, which was inaugurated a couple of years ago. So we are really proud that this center covers Caucasus and Central Asia. And we're actively working on the issue related to manage the challenges which will be accompanied by the rapid interference of fourth industrial revolution into our life, particularly with respect to employment. Azerbaijan is a country with a positive demographic situation, which I think is a positive factor, but at the same time, always it forces us to work on the issues related to employment. During the times of independence, our population grew from 7 to 10 million, even more. So employment for us is a very important factor of economic development and social development. Therefore, industrial revolution, when it will eliminate many jobs which our people are used to, will create a serious problems for that. Therefore, our people, our young generation must now be ready to to take new jobs which do not exist. And for that purpose, of course, a lot must be done by the Ministry of Education and Science. By the way, this ministry also was relatively recently transformed. Now it's Education and Science, and also vocational training, which we pay big importance to that. So all that, technological development, education, and of course international contacts and cooperation with the leading IT companies, which we have, I would say, excellent cooperation with absolutely all of the leading companies. So this is a future for Azerbaijan to position itself as a center for technological development. When oil and gas projects are basically done, when we are now starting already the huge projects of green hydrogen and green energy, including transmission and export to Europe, and with a potential connection to Central Asia, because in Central Asian countries also there are many investment projects to produce green energy. We think about building a subsea cable under the Caspian, electric cable, along with a fiber optic cable under Caspian and then further down to Europe. So all that, and geography of Azerbaijan, you know, it is a big asset. But when this geography doesn't have infrastructure, it's just a place on the map. So we need to fill it, and we need to be ahead of the processes which are generated by those who invent. So now maybe it will be not realistic to think about Azerbaijan as a producer of some very modern technological innovations, but time will come and we will do it. But we must be ready to apply those innovations in our country. But for that, basically what we need is a trained personnel and education starting from the kindergarten, school and university. And there was another, sorry, there was another question which you asked, I forgot.
It was just on ways to promote, how Azerbaijan is promoting regional cooperation and stability in the wake of the Ukraine war.
But in that respect, situation in Azerbaijan is stable. Our internal situation is not dependent on external factors. Though, of course, situation beyond our borders is a matter of serious concern, always. We have to take that into account. But from point of view of internal risks, we don't have any serious challenges internally. And proper protection of our borders, which we are now implementing the different projects, will allow us to minimize any potential risk.
Akram Umarov.
Your Excellency, my name is Akram Umarov. I'm a Deputy Director at the Institute for Advanced International Studies in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Many thanks for this great honor to ask you a question. And I was truly impressed with, as many other colleagues, with large-scale reconstruction which is happening in liberated territories. Last year I was honored to visit Agadam, yesterday Zangilan, and it was impressive changes which is happening in such a short time frame. My question is regarding the relationship between Azerbaijan and Central Asia, which has very deep roots. Before it was mainly based on just people-to-people contacts, and I should mention here maybe shortly that famous Azerbaijani geographer academician Hasan Aliyev was a good friend of my grandfather, Uzbek geographer, and visited our house several times in Samarkand. But now these people-to-people connections are going beyond and enhancing in a very deep political, economic cooperation. And it was a great achievement, I think, that you visited the meeting of Central Asian, consultative meeting of Central Asian leaders back in September this year. And in this regard, where do you see the further practical priorities of Azerbaijan? And also it's important to think about some existing challenges on enhancement, on further enhancement of relations between between Azerbaijan and Central Asia? Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned a very important factor of our many centuries cooperation and friendship, which is people-to-people contact. Actually, this people-to-people contact and the traditions and the memories actually is a foundation for today's development. In the early years of independence of our countries, each of us had different challenges. Each was preoccupied with its own domestic situation. In some countries, it was very, very serious, like in Azerbaijan, in Tajikistan, civil war, etc. But every country has its own challenges, so we were mainly preoccupied with that, building of statehood, building of economy, and building a, sovereign states. It was not easy to build a state from scratch, especially in the situation when you are limited in financial resources and you have to take care about, situation with political stability. So it was natural that at that time, even between the Central Asian countries, there was not such a strong integration as it is today. It's a situation of the last years when Central Asian countries became more integrated. And I spoke at the SPECA summit, which we hosted here with the participation of the leaders of Central Asian countries, saying that one of the important factors for all of us is political stability, especially now when we see like a wave, this a wave of instability is growing all around, and around our region and around the world, different parts of the world. Invitation to participate at the summit of Central Asian countries, which took place in Dushanbe, to me, as the only guest of honor, was a sign of great respect and also reflection of our friendship. With all the leaders of Central Asian countries, I have very good and friendly relations, and relations between the peoples, as I said, is a foundation. At the same time, many projects now which are actually leading us to a closer integration. And organizing the SPECA summit here was a program which was initiated by United Nations for Economies of Central Asia in 25 years ago, and then Azerbaijan joined it. I also said that Central Asia and Azerbaijan is actually one historical and geographical area, and now with this political interaction and concrete projects, we can create a synergy, and we are doing that. When we talk about the political interaction, we will see that is a, automatic, I would say so, mutual political support in all the international institutions, including United Nations and others. When we talk about issues related to economy, we see the growth of mutual trade. Energy and transportation routes connect us. Under current geopolitical reality, the routes through Azerbaijan for many Central Asian countries is considered to be one of the priority. And as I said, what we have done here on the transportation track already allows us to receive all the cargoes which they may ship. And also in opposite direction. Also, you know better than there is a big interest from European institutions and visits from European leaders and also leaders of European institutions to Central Asia with respect to more interaction, and we always support that. And from Europe to Central Asia, again, it goes through Azerbaijan. So as I always say, we have one barrier in front of us, the Caspian Sea, but with modern technology and fleet which we have and we built, that will not be a barrier. So I look with great optimism We have many investment projects. I just don't want to take much of the time of the audience to name all, but really these investment projects, they are counted in billions of US dollars of mutual investments, not to mention energy and transportation. So once again, it's a new reality and very positive results.
İki sualımız kaldı. Tengiz Paladze.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I'm Tengiz Paladze. I'm Georgian, but I'm working for European Center for International Political Economy. Mr. President, thank you for this great opportunity and yesterday's visit to Zangilan. That was really unforgettable experience, and my heartfelt congratulations with all the achievements you have. Actually, I got the comprehensive answer about all the questions I had related to Georgia or EU's role in the peace process. I just wish you peace and prosperity and all the best to my beloved Azerbaijan. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and best to you and all our Georgian brothers. Thank you for your kind words about Azerbaijan.
Mr. President, we're almost reaching the 3 hours with our last 20th question, Ventislav Sabev.
Yeah, so we come to the end. I'm representing the Geneva Geostrategic Observatory, and coming back to the issue of IDPs, you mentioned, Mr. President, the problem of landmines as a major impediment for the return of displaced people. A few months ago, during the summit of the non-aligned movement, you made a global initiative suggesting and even proposing to add an 18th Sustainable Development Goal on humanitarian demining. And as I come from Geneva, which is a global hub of disarmament, we have the initiative to gather NGOs and civil society and academics from the United States, Europe, of course, Geneva being present, and Azerbaijan, maybe ADA could be a partner in this initiative. So this is to convey to you this message that we would like to take this initiative in international Geneva and ask whether the initiative can be pursued in support to this international project that you launched. Thank you.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. Really, I made such an initiative. Our chairmanship in non-aligned movement is coming to an end. These 4 years were extraordinarily important for us from point of view of institutional development of NAM, which I think made a big progress, and also from point of view of great international experience and contacts with 119 countries of member states and organizing summits. So, and the idea with respect to including humanitarian demining in sustainable development goals is actually based on our unfortunate experience. So we are still losing people, losing their lives, and also almost every week we have injuries, and just yesterday, unfortunately, again, one of the deminers had a bad accident. It's already almost 350 people. 65 of them have been killed by the mines. And the tragedy is that Armenia, though they said they gave us the maps, actually those maps are useless. And in the areas which they considered that the maps they gave us are accurate, we had a lot of accidents also. And also during the times after the Second Karabakh War, before anti-terror operations, they planted again hundreds of thousands of mines in the area which they considered to be a line of contact between separatists and Azerbaijani forces. And we have identified the mines which have been produced in Armenia in 2021. And we invited the Russian peacekeepers and also Russian Turkish monitoring missions representatives and demonstrated those mines, saying that this is the evidence of Armenian terror. It's another question how these mines were transported to Karabakh after Second Karabakh War, while there was a Russian peacekeeping mission there. It's a big open question. But now, along with the mines which they planted during the occupation, which according to our estimation is close to 1 million, they gave us maps of 400,000 mines, but as I said, 25% accuracy only. And now we have hundreds of thousands of new mines planted. All the time when we send former refugees back, the main message to them is to be careful and not to go to the restricted area. All the restricted areas have its boundaries, some signs, but at the same time, unfortunately, this is a tragedy which we will face for probably decades. The experience which is available in the Balkans show that even now, 30 years after, they have this problem. So we do everything what we can in order to provide demining, as quick as possible, but, it's a very slow process. And we lack equipment, and also we lack trained personnel. Equipment can be bought, but trained personnel, it's a very specific job. And also we try to invite international companies, but I can tell you that the cost which they charge for 1 square meter is 50 or 100 times higher than the cost which we spend. So such a rate of return, if I can call it, is unacceptable. Therefore, of course, we would be happy if international institutions can be supportive in that, and if we include it, because not only Azerbaijan is suffering, we know how many countries are suffering. That can be not only financial support, actually we don't need it, but technical support and support with a trained personnel which can help us to do it as soon as possible.
Mr. President, on behalf of all participants, we would like to express our profound appreciation and thanks for comprehensive discussion and Q&A session. As a last word, I just wanted to ask Ambassador Habs Pashev as a host of our event.
Yes, Mr. President, as always, it was extremely useful for all participants, and once again you put ahead of us new task to meet another time in maybe 5-6 months later.
3 hours.
Thank you very much for this 3 hours experience.
Thank you for your attention and your patience. Thank you very much.